Welcome to Daily 5 for Tuesday, June 20th, 2023. I have been playing the independent, well, I guess they call it cozy games now. It used to be called casual games, but I guess casual games has now moved on to gambling games on your phone. So they're calling it now this genre cozy games. Games that basically don't rush you into doing much of anything. They let you kind of take the game at your own pace. But this is described as a horror cozy game, an independent game called Dredge that was released, I want to say in February or March. I've been playing it for at least a month, I'm pretty sure. I think it came out on PC first and shortly after hit the consoles. It could have been an all-platform release. I don't really remember. But I had read good reviews of it. I'd seen a couple of gameplay videos. I knew at some point I was going to get to it. And I think PlayStation had like a 20% offer went on it. So I was in between games anyway, so I figured I'd pick it up because it sounded like it was small scale enough that it wasn't something I was going to have to invest a ton of time in and pay attention to, and yet had enough depth that it sounded like a fun game to try. And I've really enjoyed it. I'm not generally a fishing game type of person, but again, I'd watched some of the videos and I went, okay, this isn't really a fishing simulator. This is a very simple fishing mechanic. But the whole game is centered around that you are a fisherman who's come into this weird area, this not really town, there is a weird town, but it's kind of a ring of islands or so that you are trapped in, I think, after a big storm. I don't really remember because the beginning is pretty quick and it really doesn't matter for the middle of the game. And I think I'm about at the midway point, but soon enough you're put into the basic gameplay loop, which is it's essentially a day and night type of fishing cycle. During the day, it's relatively safe. There are very few hazards, but there are also certain types of fish that aren't present. There are certain things that won't happen. Instead, you have to wait for night to do that, and at night, things get very, very hairy very quickly. You start to become paranoid, so you have almost like an amnesia style kind of, not madness meter, but a paranoia meter. You'll see your eye in the top of the screen will start kind of jutting around, and then it'll turn into a purple eye with all these little things coming off it like spider sense tingling, and you'll start to go crazy, and you'll start to hallucinate. Also, more monsters tend to appear at night, weird phantasms, things like that. And so the idea is that you are basically assessing your risk when you go fishing at night. But again, some fish only appear at night, some things can only be done at night. So at some point, you're going to have to venture out at night, and you just try to equip yourself and do the things you need to as fast as possible and then get back to port. Otherwise, you could have your boat smashed and then have to go to your last save point, which is pretty generous with the save points. I never really got to a point where I lost all that much progress. And in fact, there were a couple of times where the malevolent fish disabled my engines, and it was going to take me so long to get back to port that I just ran into the rocks and killed myself. And I never felt like I had to redo all that much. I mean, little things here or there, but essentially, every time you go to the dock, you save. So if you just make sure you go to the dock at the end of the day at least once, even if you only let the time, because the dock will allow you to sleep, and that regains some of your stamina and or sanity, and it also advances the clock. And the clock's an interesting mechanic because time advances only when you're moving or fishing. So if you stop dead in the water, time essentially freezes. That lets you read through some of your guides or your pursuits, things you're trying to do. It lets you kind of assess where you are. You can kind of look at the map, and time doesn't pass. As soon as you start moving again, or if you're fishing, then time begins to resume. So it's a really neat mechanic, and it was a gameplay loop that I fell into within about 20 minutes. I knew I was going to like this game because it was really easygoing and kind of getting me into the world, showing me how things worked, and just establishing what it is. And the nice part is, I really haven't been in a hurry with it. That's kind of the cozy games thing. I really haven't been worried. I'll just play it for an hour here or there, do some fishing, just build up a little bit of money, try to put markers down, that type of thing. But the game doesn't hurry you at all. It really doesn't rush you into anything, and I've naturally kind of progressed the story in what feels like one of the most organic ways that any game has ever done, where I really don't feel like it's rushing me, and yet I do kind of naturally accomplish the goals that the game wants me to accomplish. So I really like it. I think it's like $25 now, but it's well worth it because, as I said, I've put hours into this thing, and I have yet to be bored with it. I mean, I haven't looked at any guides. I've just had fun exploring the world and kind of teasing things out for myself and trying to figure out some of the puzzles without having to look at anything. There's a couple that I had to kind of get nudged a little bit here or there, but really not bad. So again, I think this is a really great game. I hope there's going to be a sequel. I'd love to see more of this type of gameplay, especially because it's so cheap and it's just so easy going. Again, I've put at least a month into it, and I feel like I could put another couple months really easily, just a lot of time, and never get bored. So again, it's called Dredge. Came out this year. I think it's on all the platforms now, but worth a try. You should give it a shot because it's a really fun game. Later.